global health consultant. I was lead trainer of the AfriChild Inter-University Child-Focused Research Training Program, and I will be moderating episode 2, season 1, in the AfriChild Center webinar series. Today's webinar will feature the work of fellows from our flagship inter-university child-focused research training program. Today, we are happy to host Ms. Sarah Kayunga District from Makerere University and Ms. Lydia Najemba Wasula, a technical expert from the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. The topic for discussion in today's webinar is drivers of violence against children in central Uganda. I will introduce them in a short while. But before I do so, I would like to invite Mr. Timothy Opobo, the Executive Director of AfriChild, to give us a few opening remarks. Mr. Opobo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Fred, our able moderator. A very good afternoon to those that are hearing me and within Uganda. Good morning to those that are in the morning of the day, and maybe even good evening to those that are in the evening of the day. I warmly welcome you to this second of our webinar series. I thank you very much for making time to really come and listen to findings that are emerging from the different pieces of work that we are doing and the work that we have done through the flagship in the university program. I'd like to thank our presenters for the day, the team from Makerere University and being led by Sarah today. We also have the team from the Ministry of Gender. I think our goal is to ensure that the findings from this work help each one of us in the different spheres that we operate in to have an impact on the lives of children. We hope that these findings help, whether you're a practitioner at community level, whether you're a policymaker at national level, whether you're a parent, whether you're an academician, that at the end of the day, the findings that we are going to hear have an impact on the well-being of children. And it's really in our interest to see that through these findings, we are making our communities more habitable for children. So once again, I thank you and welcome you. And we look forward to a very interesting, but also informative webinar. Thank you, and over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Timothy, for the opening remarks and for also blessing this second episode of the webinar series. I would like now to introduce our speakers. First and foremost, we have Ms. Sarah Kayunga District. Ms. Sarah Kayunga District. Okay, I can start my video. Okay, there we go. So Ms. Sarah Kayunga District is an accomplished academic with a strong background in finance and passion for education and children's welfare. She's a lecturer at Makerere University Business School in the Department of Finance. She holds a bachelor's degree in finance and an MBA in finance and accounting from Makerere University. She's currently pursuing doctoral training in management studies at the University of South Africa. So Ms. Sarah Kayunga is going to give a presentation and we shall have a discussant, okay, or discussants. First, we shall have Mr. John Mugisha. Mr. John Mugisha is a senior probation and welfare officer in the Uganda Ministry of Gender, Labor, and Social Development. He's also the national coordinator of the government toll-free line, Sauti 116, which is used for reporting cases of violence against children and gender-based violence. He is also the current national chair for the National Task Force on addressing online child sexual abuse and exploitation. John has over 9 years experience in probation work and has been very instrumental in issues of child protection. He has also been part of the development process of various policies, frameworks, strategies, and guidelines for children in this country, including the recent Child Policy 2020 and its implementation plan. So we shall have first the presentation by Ms. Sarah Kayunga, and that presentation will be followed by a discussion by Mr. John Mugisha, and then we shall invite you to participate actively in a Q&A session. So I hope that at the end of the next 30 minutes, we shall be ready for the Q&A. So each presenter will have 15 minutes presenting, and then 15 minutes for the discussant, and the rest of the time will be spent on the question and the answer period. So let me invite Ms. Sarah Karen Ajok to go ahead and deliver the presentation. Sarah, please unmute and deliver the presentation. I think they will allow you to show your video, but I suggest that you only show the video briefly in order to conserve bandwidth. So in the beginning, you can show the video and then we can turn it off. Okay, please go ahead. Over to you.
Prof, thank you for the introduction. A good afternoon to you all. I need to share my screen before I get started.
Sarah, you are muted.
Prof, I can hear you.
Yeah, you are muted. Please go ahead. Are you able to share your screen, Sarah? Slideshow, please.
I hope everyone can see what is on the screen. Prof, are you able to see what is on the screen?
Yes,
Prof?
I can see it.
Are you able to see what is on the screen?
Yes, I can.
Prof? Are you able to see what is on the screen?
Yes, we can see it, Sarah.
Yes, sir?
I think we are having some challenges with the hearing Sarah, and also probably it looks like she cannot hear us very well. I don't know whether there's anything, Emma, that you can do, but I see she has come back. Sarah, if you can hear us, please unmute and go ahead and deliver your presentation. We can see the screen. Sarah, we cannot hear the sounds.
Good afternoon once again. I think I'm having challenges with connectivity, but I am now back. Like I was saying, I am Sarah Karen Ajok, representing You can't still hear me?
You had gone off. It seems your connection is not very good, but now we can hear you. Please try again.
I'm getting frustrated.
Don't get frustrated, Sarah. We shall give you all the time that you need. We can now hear you. Just share your screen so that we can see the slides, and then we shall be ready to go. Are you sharing the screen, Sarah?
I am, but for some reason, I'm just failing to share it again.
You had done it very well. It seems when you have the screen okay, then the audio is not good, but you try to share the screen one more time. IT, is there anything you can do to help?
Let me reach out to her on the side. Thank you.
Do you have her slides? Sarah, say something. Want to know whether your audio is okay, then IT will be able to share your slides for you.
The audio seems to be very okay, but for some reason I can't share.
Okay, so Emma, please share Sarah's slides.
Maybe I could quickly send it to them.
Okay, please do that.
Oh, God. Prof, I have shared with them.
Emma, please go ahead and share the slides. Did you copy me?
Sorry, Prof, it hasn't yet come through.
It hasn't come through, okay. Sarah, did you copy me?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Okay. So, Sarah, can you see the slides?
Yes, I can.
Please go ahead. Your audio is good. So after every slide, you please say next slide. You prompt the person, you prompt Clinton to move to the next slide. Okay, let's go ahead and get started.
My apologies for all that. Sarah Ajok is my name, and I'm going to present on behalf of the Makere team. Right on the first slide is the name of the other team members. The presentation is on the drivers of violence against children in rural central Kayunga. Children of Kayunga District speak out. We move to the next. That is the presentation pathway, right from the introduction to the action points. Next, please. All right, to the introduction. Violence against children is a widespread global phenomenon as indicated by UNICEF. It is alarming that more than 1 billion children experience some form of violence every year as reported by that particular source. In the sub-Saharan Africa, surveys on VAC indicate that approximately 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys suffer from violence before they reach the age of 18. Physical and emotional violence are the most prevalent forms of violence that children do face. Next. Uganda police recorded a total of over 13,000 child-related cases in 2022, 8,681 in 2021, and 9,225 cases in 2020. Of the cases reported in 2021, 3,351 cases were defilement cases, and of those reported in 2020, 2,986 cases were defilement cases involving children of 9 to 14 years. Each year, Kayunga District reports over 100 child-related cases, primarily sexual offenses, to various authorities such as the police, probation officers. This concerning trend raises alarm for everyone involved. Next, please. So to the problem statement, every child should ideally experience a childhood free from violence. Sadly, numerous children worldwide, including those in Uganda, endure various forms of violence, as noted by those sources. So despite understanding the factors contributing to violence against children, there is hardly coherent documented evidence on specific drivers of violence against children, particularly in developing countries like Uganda. So this absence of clear comprehension makes it challenging for policymakers and leaders to reduce this problem in society effectively. Thus, in an effort to fill this knowledge gap, a study was conducted to investigate the drivers of violence against children at the individual, family, school, and community levels in Kayunga District, situated in central Uganda. Next. So these are the study objectives, and the first is to examine the individual drivers of violence against children in Kayunga District. Secondly, to assess the family-based drivers of violence against children in Kayunga District. And third, to explore the school-based drivers of VAC in Kayunga District. And lastly, to examine the community drivers of violence against children in Kayunga District. So to our methods, the study's geographical focus was on Kayunga District, specifically Kayunga and Chitibwa sub-counties. The selected sample schools included Kanjuchi, Roman Catholic, Kanjuchi Church of Uganda, Kanjuchi Umea, Chitatia, Roman Catholic, Chitatia Church of Uganda, and Cherema Umea. The age group of interest was school-going children aged between 10 to 14 years. Next. So this particular study utilized the concurrent mixed research design, where qualitative and quantitative data were collected at the same time, incorporating self-administered questionnaires, focus group discussions, photo voices, and validation workshops. The sample size consisted of 302 respondents for the quantitative part, and for the qualitative part, there were 132 respondents. Simple random sampling was employed to select the participant, and from the different schools, 72 participants were chosen, and out of the 72 chosen, 50% of them were female. Next, so the data collected from the 302 people through the self-administered questionnaire was coded and entered into SPSS for analysis. For the qualitative data, which included diagrams and focus group discussions, a coding process was employed, and themes were identified based on the key principles of the socio-ecological model. Quantitative results were displayed in a descriptive table, and on the other hand, the qualitative data was presented using diagrams to illustrate the themes and through transcripts of the FGD interviews. Next, please. So these are our quantitative findings as depicted by this particular table. We can see the drivers of violence against children and then the different forms or types of violence. So these are the items, the drivers, in form of the drivers that were on the questionnaire. And for each item, and each item was rated using a Likert scale of 1 to 4. Ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree. 1 was strongly agree, 2 agree, 3 disagree, and 4 was strongly disagree. So a mean score was calculated for every type of violence across all the items. And these are the mean scores that we came up with after the calculations were done. And clearly from these figures, you can see that the major driver across the different forms of violence against children is school fees, given that the mean scores are high compared to the others. But then considering also money as a driver and material things for sexual violence and physical violence based on the mean scores. So to our next, please. To our qualitative findings, if you relate back to the objectives, so at the individual level, we had disobedience, where children do not respect the instructions given by the parents. As depicted in that picture, we clearly see a child who was tied up with a rope on a tree because she refused to wash dishes as instructed by the parents. So this depicts some form of physical violence on the child. Next. Then we have mistakes, the common mistakes still at individual level, the common mistakes that children make, say, breaking a flask, a cup. So as seen in narrative 1, a child was hit by a mortar pestle on the thigh by the mother because she had broken a flask. Then in the second narrative, a child loses money that was meant for buying salt, and they were beaten to a point of almost losing consciousness. Next. Still at family level, we have a work overload where the children are given, excess tasks that they have to perform and fail within a specified period of time, and failure to do that, would attract some form of punishment in form of, like, say, physical harassment. In this picture, yes, we see a woman burning up this boy who had refused to go to the garden in the evening, after overly collecting water during daytime. Next. Then not staying with biological parents was the other driver that came out under the family drivers, where children, you know, stay with relatives such as aunties, uncles, they stay with guardians. So with this particular case, the child was staying with an uncle who had a wife, but the uncle would overly mistreat this child, despite the fact that she did all the home chores, including carrying, you know, sacks of charcoal. The auntie would still go ahead and mistreat her to an extent. At times the child would get beaten, you know, even when they haven't done anything serious or they haven't done actually anything, they would still, you know, be beaten by this particular wife to the uncle. Next. Then separation of parents. You know that disruption in the family structure leads to emotional distress for children. Children going through parental separation experience feelings of abandonment, confusion, and this is seen in this particular case where, you know, the mother of this boy moves away with some of his siblings and the boy remains behind with the father. But at some point, the mother comes and picks this boy, takes him to wherever she is, but the father picks this boy and brings him back. The mother didn't ever try to come back again for him. But after that, the father battles this boy, makes utterances like, why don't you leave my home? I'll chop you into pieces. You can imagine, you know, being a child and then someone is saying they're going to chop you into pieces. So this psychologically tortured this boy, apart from, like, you know, the physical harassment that he had to go through. At the end of the day, he had to leave home. He ran away. Next. Then financial distress also featured as a driver under family drivers of violence against children. Some parents experience significant financial hardships. You know, financial hardships will usually come with stress, anger, pressure, and all this is spilled over to the children, leading to emotional or physical abuse. And this is clearly seen in this particular narrative where a child, you know, brings food for an uncle and then the uncle pours the food right onto the face of the child because he was angry, and the anger came from, you know, being unable to pay the debts that he had. Next. Then failure to investigate under the school drivers also stood out, where some children say that some of the teachers do not bother to ascertain whether the child actually did whatever they're accused of. They would just go ahead and beat them without ascertaining whether they actually did whatever they are being accused of. And many of them were hurt. So its child is being subjected to physical harassment, but as well as that psychological distress. Next. Then unprofessional conduct of teachers. Some teachers were very unprofessional in the way they carried themselves. This particular teacher provided in the narrative would shout at the children in class. And also he would never mark books of children who would never finish his exercise on time. So some of them got psychologically tortured because you see your friends' books are being marked, but yours is not marked simply because you did not finish the exercise on time. Next. Then a lack of writing materials was the other driver that came out under the school drivers, where children would get beaten for lacking materials like books, you know, and then not doing homework because you actually do not have what to write in. So at the end of the day, they would get beaten up by the teachers. Next. Then under community drivers, we had negative peer influence in the community, so that children who were looked at as bad influence by some parents, and when those children try to interact with children of parents who tag them as bad company, they would actually get beaten up. So those who were looked at as bad company would get beaten up by parents of children who looked at them as, you know, bad influence to their children. Then still at community level, we had water scarcity, where children would actually be beaten up for delaying at these water collection points. You know, like if there are few water collection points, there are many people at the borehole, you're gonna take a lot of time. You have to wait until your time is up. So some kids would end up being beaten up by their parents because of the delay. Next. So in summary, there's a lack of, there's inadequate guidance provided to children regarding where to find appropriate support and assistance when they experience any form of violence. Then the high levels of poverty at both community and household levels. Then also there's limited awareness of alternative disciplinary methods, both at home and at school. It came out clear that, you know, corporal punishment was the only method they used to discipline the children. Next. So to the action points to eliminate or reduce violence against children, we call upon non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, CBOs, and the government agencies to educate and raise awareness among children about properly reporting and seeking help for any violence they may experience within homes, schools, and communities, and then promoting the adoption of positive disciplinary methods and discouraging the use of corporal punishments. For example, like if a child has privileges, those privileges could be withdrawn other than, you know, spanking them or hitting them, and then working towards enhancing household and community level income, and thereby reducing the number of impoverished households. I think the latest development from government is the PDM, where a parish development model where groups within communities can access cheaper sources of finance to help them boost, you know, the different sources of livelihood. And then the other way the community, household and community level incomes can be increased is maybe through promotion of vocational trainings within communities to enhance skills of the different individuals within those communities. So as they can be, for them to be able to boost their different sources of livelihood. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for this very insightful presentation. And sorry, I tried not to rush you, but you did very well in terms of your timekeeping. Now, colleagues, what we are going to do is move straight into the next presentation or to the next discussant. I urge you to keep your questions or comments. You'll get an opportunity to pose them to Sarah after the second presentation, which is the discussion. But you can also use the Q&A or the chat room for some of the comments that you might have. So without wasting much time, join me in thanking Sarah once more, and also at the same time inviting Mr. John Mugisha, who is the discussant. John is an expert, technical expert from the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development in the government of Uganda, and he is also Senior Probation and Welfare Officer. So John, please, you have 15 minutes to deliver your presentation. Go ahead and share your slides. I hope you have permission to share the slides. And unmute.
Yes, I do.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Fred, and thank you, colleagues online.
Can you please put in slideshow?
Yes, I'm doing that.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, just wanted to appreciate the colleagues that are online. As I've been introduced, my name is Mugisha John. I am standing in for Ms. Lydia Najemba Wasula. She was supposed to make this presentation, but as you're all aware, sometimes we have certain assignments that come in at last minute and disrupt, but all the same, she sends her regards, and we shall still be able to justice to the presentation. We want to appreciate Africhild, Makerere University, and of course, Kayunga District for doing this research. That said, I'll dive into the presentation directly. Like Sarah said, it's quite interesting in terms of Uganda when you look at issues of violence against children. And their focus being in Kayunga, but we want to give you a general picture in terms of how our country looks like. If you look at our current population, we're looking at around 21 million children that we have currently. And of course, with the females being 10.4 million, with the male being 10.6 million. This is basically data that we provide from the Universal Newborn Hearing Screening, and this data is available online. You can still get time and go through and see the different dimensions. But we want to show you, looking at a big population of 40 million Ugandans plus, the children are about half of that. That said, as a country, we have made strides. We have had a journey that we have undertaken in regards to setting up interventions on ending violence against children. And for some time, we have been challenged by issues of lacking data. So in 2015, we carried out a research where we're looking at surveying issues of violence against children in terms of what children go through. Of course, this gave birth to the Uganda Violence Against Children Survey report, which we launched in 2018. And the reports are available online, colleagues, those who haven't had a chance to look at it. But the report focused on the magnitude and nature of violence and the health consequences of violence, including assessing the utilizations of services, as well as information on attitudes towards gender and intimate partner violence. That said, why did we carry or undertake this survey? Of course, we had limited nationwide data on the prevalence and magnitude of violence against children. Most times we see in media, people say cases are many, this and that, but we wanted to have at least the best data that we could based on guide interventions. And then the only data that we had that was available was always limited in scope and depth. And so that's why we had to carry this out. And then, of course, the Uganda Demographic and Health Survey 2016 had provided some insights into the social and cultural norms related to violence against children, but it was still inefficient, at least to guide us on what we need to do. So although there were studies which were generated providing valuable information, they were still limited in scope and depth, and therefore it required us to have the survey carried out. And of course, we had quite a lot of achievements in regards to us being able to improve in regards to programming and as well as achieving the SDGs in regards to 5.1, 5.2, and 16.2. So just a small picture for the members online. That's what the report projected to us. And that violence happens both in rural and urban settings. And there was a question which has already been posed to us, comparing where does violence happen the most. And so the survey told us that violence can happen to any child, whether in the rural or urban setting. If you look at issues of sexual violence, we saw that within the rural setting, girls, about 35.4% who are experiencing sexual violence. And if you look at the urban setting, it was very close, 35.1. So violence can happen anywhere. And so with this survey was focusing on those different dynamics to see whether there are unique circumstances that could happen, including issues of physical violence. You can see the disparities are quite not so high. So violence can happen to any child. So a child is not safe, whether in the rural or urban settings. And therefore, we need to put in place interventions that could easily actually guide, including a focus on issues of emotional violence. Most times parents think that when they utter words, they are basically correcting, but there are certain words that could actually violate a child, especially psychologically, in terms of their behavior, in terms of their loss, in terms of hope. So we did see this as well, but you can see the differences are quite very minimal in regards to the key findings, but these are available within the report. But something to catch everyone's eye is that there were several gender dimensions of back in Uganda that we witnessed, where we saw that Ugandan girls experience multiple types of violence, that you would find a girl is experiencing 2 forms of violence and others even more. And so it was quite something that we had always anticipated and wondering what happens actually. But actually the survey gave us that insight, where you would find that there are those who are experiencing sexual plus physical, there are those who are experiencing physical plus emotional, there are those who are experiencing all the 3, physical, sexual, emotional. So you find a household, a father has deserted the household, there is emotional violence, girls have been defiled, they're pregnant. At the same time, there is a lot of physical violence, fighting, and all these different dynamics. So it was quite something interesting. But as government, we are taking a lot of action. And coming from the Ministry of Gender, which is responsible for issues of children, we as a country, we have been earmarked as a country that is a pathfinder country because we have taken several steps in order for us to be able to be considered as a pathfinder country. First of all, we have adopted the Inspire strategy, and I would beg people to get time and also look at what the Inspire strategy focuses on. But in a snapshot, it focuses on implementation of laws and enforcement of laws, the norms and values, safe environments, parenting and caregiving support, income and economic support, education and other life skills. So it's just an abbreviation of something quite big that we can actually implement. Of course, when the survey came out, we had commitments across from the parliamentarians. We had a whole session on VAC. We had a motion urging government to take more drastic steps to address issues of VAC. And of course, we had to also be guided in regards to what the public wants. And these sessions were guided by children, both boys and girls, advocating for the different policies and laws that we would want to see being implemented by the country, also in regards to issues of the motion on sexual violence against girls. And just a picture, just for those that missed those sessions, that was the time of Honorable Kadaga. And so you can see the sessions, the children were chairing, guiding, testimonies which were given. All these were part of the efforts that we're trying to gear to empower the children to ensure that their voices matter in these sessions. And of course, the children did contribute to our Child Policy 2020, which is now also in support of the interventions for this back. That said, as a country, how we are moving step by step, we are guided by the Constitution of our country of 1985 as amended, and Article 34 provides focus on the issues of child's rights, as well as child care and protection. Then, of course, we amended the Act, and we are trying to also domesticate other interventions related to ensuring that the Act is implemented quite well, especially with CAP 59, which enhances the protection of children from all forms of violence, corporal punishment, institutions, establishing, as well as the Sauti 116, which is also regarded as the Uganda Child Helpline, which is run by government with support from partners. Of course, also the Penal Code Act, which also talks about issues of sexual offenses, quite a lot that is happening. And of course, the latest baby on the scene, which is the National Child Policy of 2020 and its implementation plan, which is holistic, looking at the child holistically, the development, the health of the child, the protection of the child, the participation of the child, including system strengthening. In regards to norms and values change, of course, we are all aware as a country, we have the Female Genital Mutilation Act of 2010, which we are implementing, and there's quite strides that we have done. Now the act is happening across border, it's not happening here, people cross over, but still we are having inter-country discussions and interventions to address that. We have the National Strategy on Ending Child Marriage and Teenage Pregnancies. We recently reviewed it, and we have a new one out. Then we have a national communication strategy on promoting positive norms, values, and positive mindsets among young people, which was adopted in 2016, because we know who's guiding the children. So we have created this communication strategy to basically guide how the behaviors that we expect the young people to actually exhibit as they grow. Then we're promoting and testing social norm change models in various districts. We are coaching boys into men, and of course the Salsa model, which we have actually implemented in areas like Mtiana, and it's also been scaled up. In regards to safe environments, we have the National Strategy on Ending Violence Against Children in and around schools, which is led by the Ministry of Education. We have the National Multi-Sectoral Framework on Adolescent Girls. And of course, we have the issues of child-friendly spaces in schools, which have been created. Of course, not in all schools, but the efforts are there geared. Then, of course, youth-friendly spaces at health facilities. And if you have visited one or two, you would have seen them. Of course, the issues of parenting. We have a lot of fathers and mothers as a country, but we don't have parents. So we developed a national family policy, which is at cabinet level for approval. We have national parenting guidelines, which also includes the national parenting standards and national parenting manual. And then we took certain steps as a country to declare the year of the family. That was in 2017. And then, of course, 2019, we declared the year of the child. So we're taking these are just to create a focus and a center point for those that are affected by issues of violence to be able to address them quite well, looking at those who go through violence. Then, of course, policy briefs, pronouncements that have been made, commitments within issues of the 16 officially gazetted cultural institutions, 8 religious institutions, and other commitments to end violence against children. And of course, issues of early childhood development have been prioritized in the National Development Plan 2 and as well as 3. So all these are efforts that as a country we have taken. And then of course the Real Fathers Program, which we have adopted as a country to try and bring back the men into the family. The men are absent. So we are trying very hard using this program in about 24 districts, including Kayunga, where we had the project being carried out. Then, of course, issues of economic and income strengthening. And of course, this, I know as a country, we have designed various, we have also set up what we call the social protection, which is built on 2 pillars, that is social security, social care, and social services, then Operation Wealth Creation, then Uganda Entrepreneurship Program, which is known as WEP, then of course, Uganda Youth Livelihood Program. All these are still running, and we have whole sections which are dedicated towards that to ensure that the public is able to benefit from these programs. We have the Social Assistance Grant for the elderly, which is known as FETCH, and of course, the recently new baby on the block, which is known as GROW project, and which will also still be rolled out to support and strengthen the family. Then, of course, the unbanked population, which, of course, through circles and others. In terms of response, we have an online case management tool, which provides 24/7 support. That is the Sauti 116 helpline. It's one of the kind in the whole of Africa, and I think in the whole of the world, in terms of being run by a government entity and basically being given support. So we are receiving over 1,700 calls. We can actually even take on more by the new system that we have, which has been supported by UNFPA and UNICEF. And so we're trying to put in place various mechanisms, and we're encouraging the higher institutions of learning to churn out people that can help us, the counselors, the social workers. These are important courses. Of course, I've had a discussion in the media, but we want to go outside, maybe in the discussion later on. Then we have designed applications such as SafePal, which help the young people to be able to report, as well as National Handbook on Child Protection and Case Management. And we have a vibrant case management system which links the informal actors to the informal. You've heard of issues of parasocial workers, you've heard of issues of partners bringing child protection structures. Then we have the National Training Manual on psychosocial support. We have the National Training Manual for parasocial workers, which has been reviewed as of 2023. Then we piloted what we call the cognitive behavior therapy for rehabilitation of victims of abuse, which focuses on issues of anxiety and depression. Then, of course, the National Child Wellbeing Management Information System, because we have had an issue as a country where we don't know who has the total sources of all issues of children. So we're trying to create a linkage of the different MISs, which are run by different MDS departments and agencies, to link issues of children together. In regards to the project, the Kayunga project, as a ministry, we are proud and congratulate Makerere University and African for the job well done. Of course, already Sarah highlighted some of these, I'm not going through them. But as a ministry, we had some takeaways, and looking at the drivers, especially for Kayunga, we looked at issues of separation of parents, household poverty, the strictness of children's poverty, issues of GBV, then of course the shortage in terms of food at home, then the families are broken, like I said, there's a lot of abuse of alcohol and others. Then of course the common mistakes children make where they were breaking things as the report highlighted. Then of course children not listening, the issues of not understanding the personalities of these children. Then at a community level, we had irresponsible parents, Like I said, we have a lot of fathers and mothers, but we don't know what to do. Then, of course, strict school teachers, how our teachers are trained, the behaviors they present makes it hard for the children to report. And sometimes even they are the same people who administer violence to the children. Then poverty within the homes, unemployment, issues of stress, issues of the health status, the ignorance. Then, of course, certain practices which have been embedded within the community, the negative peer influences, general drivers that we see across the country from the data that we have received across board, issues of peer influence, household poverty, chronic illnesses. These days, people are obese, they eat all sorts of junk, no healthy food that people are consuming, issues of substance abuse, gender-based violence, violence against children, the digital media, portraying violence as if it's something okay, because we present it on one side, we don't present the intervention sometimes. Then, of course, the poor parenting practices. Key lessons that we are picking out of this, that we need a functional coordination mechanism at all levels. If everyone works through structures that government has put in place, then we have that togetherness. We're able to live as one. Right now, we are advocating for issues of child well-being committees across the local governments, even at the national level. Then issues of collaborations and partnerships. The Makerere, Afichild, and Kayunga District Local Government Partnership is one to admire and actually celebrate. Then, of course, violence against children being a cross-cutting issue that affects development and calls for collaboration between the departments at the district level, which we need to advocate for. It's not just a community-based service department issue, but it's an education issue, it's a health issue, it is an academic issue, it is a civil society issue. Then, of course, legal reforms to address emerging back issues, like issues around ending child marriage. Of course, we know child marriage by passage of the law, it's not legal. You can't say a child has gotten married, but that kind of form of setting where children are put through such stress. Then, of course, the strengthened community structures. Of course, the parasocial workers who are in the communities, our LC structures, of course, now their term of office has expired, but it is something that we should advocate for. Then, of course, the high level of political commitment to ending back. We saw this in Kayunga, and of course, the continuous data provision. Shortfalls, yes, Fred.
Yes, please. Let's try to just 1 second wind up so that we give for just a few questions.
Okay, that's not a threat. Okay, I'll just highlight one shortfall. Of course, this focused on one district. We would like to see this being scaled up to actually handle other districts. And of course, there are other opportunities that we think should also be considered by Afichild, Makerere, and even other institutions of learning that you could take on some of this. So as a ministry, we stand with what Kofi Annan said one time, that there is no trust more sacred than the one that the world holds for the children. There is no duty more important than ensuring that their rights are respected and that their welfare is protected and their lives are free from fear and want, and they can grow in peace. So hope never runs dry. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, John, for this really very informative presentation. You have put Sarah's study results into the context, the government context, legal and social context, and also lessons learned. And it's good to hear that you as a government are doing a lot to address some of the drivers which were mentioned by Sarah. So colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we're not doing very well with the time, but we do have comments and questions. And I'm sure once I give you the opportunity, hands will be shooting up. But I would like really first to start by looking at the Q&A platform. And there are questions. We have 7 questions. And one is from Dr. Evans Were. He says, thank you so much for this insightful research and talk. While there are several similarities in underlying issues and risk factors, can these findings be extrapolated to urban areas of Uganda? So that is one question. I guess that will be going to Sarah mainly. The next one is anonymous attendee, and it says, thank you, John. Could you please clarify the age range for the statistics on children? And then next, I hope Sarah and John, you are jotting down these questions, because I'll give you an opportunity to address them. Then from Charlotte or lawyer, are there strategies to take care of the children? Okay. And then Charlotte or lawyer again continue. Okay. They are very informative. Charlotte again was CBT piloted in Kayunga. What were the results? Is this going to be extended? And I think John alluded to being rolled out of or scaled up to other districts as well. And then Charlotte, Charlotte, you asked so many questions, but let's take this one. From what you have shared, a lot of the challenges that the children are facing are of an interpersonal nature. Why the choice of CBT as a therapy for children? So let's address some of those questions. We'll look at more. There are more under Q&A. There's bandages for male involvement. Please note them down. And then Professor Liz, I have noted with concern the finding that poverty is listed among the drivers of violence against children. Did the study include rich families? And did it indicate that no violence happens in families where there is no poverty? What do we mean by drivers? Okay, so let's go ahead. And I think, Sarah, let's begin with you. The questions which are related to you, actually even beginning with the last one, but let's go to the first one, okay? Similarities in underlying issues. Can you extrapolate these to urban areas? Go ahead, Sarah, please. Sarah, are you there? Unmute, Sarah. John, can you clarify the age range for the statistics on children that you gave?
Yes, I can. It is from 0 to 17 years.
0 to 17 years, okay.
Yes, and we'll be able to share the presentation, so they'll be able to look at that. But that's why I encouraged them to look at the main report so that we could see.
Okay, so you can share both the presentation and the report, okay? Is there any other question you would like to address among these that I've read out? Yes, there is the last one. Oh no, that should be for Sarah. The issue of, does the violence against children only occur in poor households? How about the rich families? When Sarah unmutes, I think she's having challenges with her connection. She'll be able to address those. Let's move on to the chat room. In the chat room, there are so many of these. I don't know how we're going to handle it, but let me see if I may just move back to the top. A lot of it is just, I'll pick out a few. Let's see, most of those are just registration. Okay, registration. Have you picked out any? Can you pick out any? Emma, can you help me? I'm scrolling through quite quickly. But at the beginning, most of those were just registration.
Okay, Prof. I can just read through a couple.
You're sure? Please go ahead.
Okay, so there's one here from Catherine Mutesi. Given the intersection between family, school, and community, how best can caregivers, parents, or guardians centrality be enhanced? 7 out of 14 drivers shared fall under the family level. Family, unlike school setting, which is structured, they listen more to faith or religion and culture. How can these structures be tapped into? That's one. The other one is, just give me a moment. Most of them are commentary. Okay, so there's a question here from Kasahun Tila. For Sarah, have you got any gender differences between boys and girls in experiencing violence? Why and how? For John, still from Kasahun. Sorry?
Emma, there are some questions in the Q&A. There's
Okay.
one from Dr. from the University of one in Germany. I can't pronounce that word, but that university in Germany. And then there's also another question from Dr. Kunda, which I release. If you could take a look at those, they're in the Q&A in the open session.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And then there's one, this one is for John. In Ethiopia, parental education has been a significant predictor of the drivers of violence against children. I didn't see its impact here. Can you please explain? That is John. So John, let's take, I know we have rushed through the questions for you, but let's take your perspective on what some of the questions are about.
Thank you, Fred. I'll begin with the question from Ethiopia. It's not quite clear whether it's focusing on the research in Kayunga or in general, but it has an impact here. It has an impact, I think, maybe because we were just giving what we are doing as a country. But if you look at the Violence Against Children Survey of 2018, and if you look at the statistics that we are getting from police, from the Sauti 116 helpline, they are quite the drivers, actually, when you look at it. And so there are a lot of gaps that we have that we think we can actually fulfill if we work together, not just as government, but also as the private sector, as well as the civil society and the general public as well. And then, of course, the issue of involving the religious structures. As a Ministry of Gender, we are responsible actually for family. We have a whole department on culture and family, and we are involving them. There are various processes. They have had various trainings. We have actually been given pulpits to actually highlight various programs and also hint on various things. And we have actually had interventions which are driven both with culture institutions and religious institutions, which are geared towards mindset change, but also fighting issues of violence against children. So we're involving them. And then, of course, the interventions are not just centralized. I think it was just because of the planning, the initial planning that the partners came on board, but there are various interventions that are happening, not just within the central region, but all the different regions, be it north, be it eastern, be it western, be it southwestern. So it's just a matter of people going towards their districts. Services were decentralized. You'll be able to see what actually your district has. Most of the times, people are geared towards the negativity and they forget about the positivity. That's why I was highlighting that. Very important that even as we highlight the gruesome violence against children happening within the community, let us also highlight what we are doing as partners, as higher institutions of learning, as families, to address issues of violence. I think that will guide and also help someone out there who may be looking for an intervention that he could actually undertake. So most of these different contributions that members are bringing on board, I think are just highlighting that we are all concerned that violence against children is shooting up, but we can do more. But me as a person, I believe it is good that people are reporting. It's good that people are highlighting. They're using the media. The only challenge is that they are stopping at that part of recording videos and sharing the videos in a crazy way. But if they could also go ahead and picking from what Kayunga has been able to do, being able to take these cases forward through the system, I think we'll be able to see very many convictions. We'll be able to address the behaviors within the communities. That's what I can say for it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll read one more from the chat from Bernard Luerekera. And he says, a very informative presentation. Thank you very much, John. Sometimes it is difficult to draw a clear line between legitimate disciplining and the violence against children. What is your view on this?
Well, my view is that we have what we call alternative to corporal punishments. We have positive disciplining, and there's no one who would want to being inflicted with pain, whether mentally, physically, sexually, or psychologically, as a way of disciplining someone to instill some kind of behavior that one would be expecting. But it's for you to understand that everyone's different in regards to their behaviors, how they learn, and the characteristics of an individual. So to me, I don't think it should be an excuse for us to use violence, but there are different approaches which have been tested, which can be used. I always use this example that you imagine when a police officer comes and hits you, you say, why are you hitting me? You're not supposed to hit me. Now imagine a child being hit that same way. That same pain they feel is the same pain that you would also feel. So there's no one who would want to go through that as a way of instilling into someone a certain way of behaving. It's about showing someone what are the pros and cons. If you do A, these are the liabilities. It's just a challenge that we have over westernized this, but I believe our children can listen, our children understand us better, and they learn from us. How we behave actually is what they actually portray outside there. So if we are behaving in a contrary way and we say, do as I say and not as I do, then we are expected to actually end up committing violence against them. Yeah.
Okay.
Over to you, Fred.
Yeah, thank you very, very much, John, for responding to those questions. I'm sure Sarah would have had a lot to say also, but she's experiencing connectivity issues. It is now 10 after the hour, so we have gone over by 10 minutes, and it's because we're trying to catch up on time, which we lost at the beginning. I'm going to propose that we end here, and I want to thank our presenters. First of all, Sarah, the presenter, and John, our discussant, for a great job that they have done. They have done really good justice on the subject at hand, which is violence against children. And please join me in giving them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Secondly, I want to thank you, the participants, for having spared your valuable time to come and be with us here and listen to the work that these fellows have done, and also addressing a very important topic. I'm sure in your countries, some of these issues which were found, you can relate to them. So we thank you for having attended and participated actively. And finally, I wish to thank AfriChild for giving us this webinar series, which are very good learning opportunity, and hope that we can continue even beyond the present group of fellows into the next group. So thank you all very, very much. We shall do everything possible to collect the comments and questions in the chat, and also those in the Q&A platform, and try to see that we respond to them. If you have any other questions, please do write to AfriChild, and you will be responded to. As you have heard, these slides will be made available to the participants, and we shall also give you links to some of the documents which are there, especially the research reports from AfriChild. So thank you very much. AfriChild, is there any comment you would like to make? I don't see any hand up. If there is no comment, we are going to stop here. And until next time, goodbye and have a very productive week ahead of you. Bye.